Now, let's take a look at him.
Hey everybody, welcome to Play, Rank, Share, the show where I play the marquee PlayStation 5 titles, create an ever-evolving ranking of the best PlayStation 5 games, and share my opinions with you. My name is Tyrus, and this episode is focused on Resident Evil Village. Released in May 2021, Resident Evil Village comes at a resurgence for one of the world's most popular video game franchises. After a fall from grace during the PS3 generation, Capcom has righted the ship on their cornerstone franchise, in part thanks to this new trilogy that shifts to a first-person perspective. I was a big fan of Resident Evil Biohazard and played that for the first time in the lead up to the release for Village. After completing both games in this trilogy, I find that Village, while still a great game, doesn't hold up to the standards set by Biohazard. This leaves my opinions on Village in an interesting spot. I think it's a fun game to play, I enjoyed my time with it, and I recommend others play it, but I can't help but feel a little disappointed at the same time. In Resident Evil Village, you play as Ethan Winters, our battered protagonist from Resident Evil Biohazard. Ethan once again finds himself in a precarious position where he needs to save his family, this time being his daughter. In a game that features several unique characters with great design and personality, Ethan completely falls flat as a protagonist. He's like a glorified wet noodle and has a lack of personality about him that makes it difficult to be invested with him or his story. His occasional quips when traveling the world and lines in cutscenes always feel void of emotion and makes it feel a bit like amateur hour when it comes to this aspect of the game.
Maybe they're out?
In addition to the less relatable main character, Village has persistent pacing problems within it. Castle Dimitrescu was a set piece featured predominantly in marketing, but represents a small portion of the game and is only featured early on. Similarly, interesting boss characters are only featured tangentially to the story, and it feels like you have 5 or 6 monsters of the week type enemies to defeat, and they only pose a small threat as you move on to your next menace. I feel like this muted the overall impact any one character could have on both the story of the game or my personal memories reflecting on this experience. The Baker family presented in Resident Evil Biohazard I found much more daunting of an opponent and more memorable. The other issue I have with pacing in Village is that the game feels front-loaded to me, and the best moments are used up in the beginning of the game. This overall soured my experience a bit as I felt the ending was the least interesting part of the game and made me miss the moments I was having earlier in my playthrough. With these shortcomings that the game possesses, I think it's important to also talk about the gameplay. After all, gameplay should be the most important aspect of the game, especially in an action-adventure shooter like Village. The shooting feels tight and responsive, and the game presents enough enemy variety to keep it interesting. There are several boss battles in the game, and while the majority feel creative with interesting puzzles to solve within them, a couple feel like old relics from the PS2 and 3 style game design era. One aspect of the game design that I did enjoy is that you slowly unlock your rotation of guns throughout the game, saving more spectacle weapons like a grenade launcher until you are further on in the story. I think this restraint helps keep the horror tone throughout the whole game that is necessary for Village. Additionally, keeping the more absurd weapons until later on, where there are more appropriate and bigger threats for using them, helps make this wild, fantastical story feel a little more grounded since things slowly scale up over time. I think some of the best appeal factor to Village is its astounding presentation value. No game yet on the PlayStation 5 has created environmental set pieces that are as impressive to me as Castle Dimitrescu. This game is stunning and is able to create a variety of haunting creatures to battle and characters to interact with that bring the world to life. Some character designs are also magnificently crafted and unlike anything we have seen yet on the console. While Lady Dimitrescu gets all the attention online, I feel like the design of the Fish King, who appears later in the game, is also very good. These general-like bosses, while brief in appearance but good in design, had very fascinating characterizations in how they related to the plot and their own goals and ambitions. The moments of development were interesting and had me left wanting to know more about the histories of these characters in their world. The game does complement horror elements with its high production value. There were moments of the game where I was on the edge of my seat, nervous about what lay ahead in the game. There were several jump scares that genuinely spooked me. I'll bet these happen less often than in RE7. Resident Evil Village is a set-piece game that has sculpted beautiful landscapes and creates a bleak world to explore. The trouble with Village is that I don't think it's as quality of a game compared to its predecessor. It makes me feel that I'm more down on this game in the context of the Resident Evil universe, while as an overall package I think it's still impressive. Village has rock-solid gameplay mechanics and some memorable enemies. The game does fall flat with its rocky pacing in the story and a protagonist in Ethan Winters that's just hard to be invested in at all, but I still enjoyed getting a scare or two throughout my journey in this great graphical showcase. Overall, I think Resident Evil Village is a great game and I give it a score of 8 out of 10. Ranking Resident Evil Village in the list of best PlayStation 5 games was one of the hardest tasks I have had yet. This game is of impressive highs, but also boring and cumbersome lows. I overall enjoyed my experience, but can't help but feel like it's a game where I can concretely think of ways to improve it. At the end of the day, I decided to rank Resident Evil Village at number 10 on my list of best PlayStation 5 games. The single biggest factor dragging its ranking was the horrible protagonist in Ethan Winters, although the strange pacing of the game also contributed. I do feel like I'm being a little too negative on a game I did enjoy with my playtime. With that in mind, I feel like I need to reiterate that graphically this is one of the most impressive games on the console. The moment-to-moment gameplay is smooth and engaging, and I had a fantastic time in the front half of the game, but in the back half it really started to fall off for me, leaving a bad taste in my mouth. Thank you for watching this episode of Play, Rank, Share. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when future episodes are released. Up next for Play, Rank, Share is a series of videos focused on 2021 in review, including underrated games, my biggest disappointments, and the all-important Game of the Year list. If you want to see more of Resident Evil Village, check us out playing the demo on our show, The Gamer Seat. What are your thoughts on Village? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, don't stop sharing.
Oh, be careful what you wish for, Ethan Winters.